Greg, you got Sally in the weight room.
Oh, why do I not see it? Oh, there it is. Okay, got it.
We should be good.
And we are live. Okay. All right. I'm trying to put Sally. Okay, there we go. All right, so ladies and gentlemen, hi Sally, I'm going to call our meeting to order. Today is April 7th, 2020. This is a business meeting of the North Kingstown School Committee. And pursuant to Executive Order 20-05 issued by the Governor of the State of Rhode Island, due to the current state of emergency, this meeting is being conducted electronically by video chat with public access provided through our normal website with the school department. To anyone watching and to our participants, this is still kind of new to us and not perfect. So if anyone has any trouble with audio or anything like that, let me know. What we've done is if you want to speak, if you can just sort of raise your hand, I should be able to see that, and that way we aren't talking over each other. I will ask us all to, as I joked last time, awkwardly please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. And Mrs. Healy, if you could please call the roll.
Mr. Blacklock?
Here.
Mr. Jones?
Here.
Mrs. Hoskins?
Here.
Mrs. Hildebrand? Mr. Mather?
Here.
Mrs. Schott?
Here.
Joe Bendo? And Ann Etchells. Thank you.
And Lisa, could we not hear you?
No.
We can't hear you. So, I can see you talking, but I still can't hear you. You might want to sign in and out again or something, I don't know. So you work on that, and if you need to speak, wait frantically, and I'll wait for you. Okay. Next item, we have citizen comments. I did receive a citizen's comment, which I will read into the record. And it is from Sue Warburton. And it says, "Good evening. My name is Sue Warburton. I am the president of the Teachers Union in North Kingstown. I want to sincerely thank Dr. Ojay, Dr. Manzeri, and Mary King for their responsiveness and collaboration with the teachers as we move to distance learning literally overnight. The collaboration and cooperation that I have seen between teachers, TAs, clerks, custodians, and all of those who work for the school department has been nothing short of amazing. I've been a teacher for over 25 years, and I've never seen such innovation and creativity. Also, a huge thank you to the families who are working with us to ensure that their children continue learning and staying engaged in the community. Thank you all. Stay safe." Mrs. Healy, did you receive any other citizen comments?
You did.
Now you know.
No other citizens comment.
Okay, thank you. Okay, and Lisa, can you talk for a second?
I'm here.
Okay, good. Yeah, we got you back. Okay. The next item on the agenda is the superintendent's report. So Dr. Ojay, I'll turn things over to you. No, Phil, you're muted too.
Sorry about that.
There you go.
Okay, so thank you. I just wanted to make a quick report on a couple of grading decisions that we've made in the district. We have this on the agenda as something to vote on. We put it there out of caution as we were preparing this last week, but I don't believe it really needs a vote. It's just something I'd like to report on. So a couple of items. One is the senior project at the high school. After a lot of deliberation with our English teachers and our faculty, we've decided to kind of modify the senior project. We find that going to the full extent for some of these projects, many of which include major fundraising efforts and gatherings for plays and concerts and that sort of thing, taking place over the next few weeks would be just too difficult for a lot of students to finalize. So, not that we're doing away with the whole item, but it will be, the requirement for it will be lessened in the fourth quarter and be modified to more of a paper format in terms of reflecting on the work they've done. Much of the work for the senior project is done by the end of the third quarter, and that's all graded out for students anyway. So this really doesn't cut back on it too significantly. And where it does cut back in the fourth quarter, other projects in English will make up for that, and some of those will be, weighted heavier for our seniors. There's also an opportunity for those people who have either completed or done a lot of great work and they want to show it off. We're putting together, with the help of Aaron Thomas, kind of a video that we plan to publish where students can really show off a lot of the great work that they've done. It is a really nice community event at the end of the year. It's a shame to not have it, but this way students can still share a lot of the great work that we've done. The other piece to this is a lot of districts are having discussions about rating a little bit differently in the fourth quarter. And we feel that we would like to see some modification at the elementary level in particular. We don't have the final version of this yet. We're still talking about this with principals, and our principals are talking about it with their staff. But we feel that the typical standards-based report card, those are completed through quarter 3, but the quarter 4 may look a little bit differently. There's far more variation in terms of students' level of being able to engage in this work at the elementary level than at the middle and high school. And we feel we need to be kind of sensitive to that and do our grading a little bit more holistically. So we're looking at some kind of more simplified version of this, whether it's a pass-fail or some kind of a narrative report. The essential thing is that the students get feedback for their work, not necessarily grades on the standard-based report card. So we're in discussions about how to do that. And this will not really change, how students move from grade level to grade level or anything like that. It's just we want to be mindful that this is a unique experience, and the most important thing is to give parents and students the right kind of feedback and some good advice on how to prepare for next year, given that their schooling has not been the same as what it typically would be. So those are two things we're working on. I don't know if Dr. Manseri has anything to add to that, but that's all I have for tonight.
Okay, thank you. Anyone have any questions?
Can I just make a quick comment, Greg?
Sure.
Yes.
So I have 2 seniors, and I think the decision on the senior project was the right one. They were both at different places, and one was unable to finish his because of the nature of it. It was an event. So I think it was good, and I think that the amount of work that they're expected to do moving forward and writing the reflection will be really appropriate, and just a good way to cap it off. So thank you for. I think it was the right decision given where we are.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I would just like to add, I definitely concur with Sally, and as far as the elementary grading goes, the great part about having Friday for the teachers to be able to work district-wide with one another will give them an opportunity across all 5 schools to talk about what they'd like to do, so most likely we'll have a little more.
So is democracy the same way?
I don't know the specifics on democracy. I'm not sure, what they plan on doing, particularly for the night where they normally show off their stuff. Denise, I don't know if you've heard anything on that.
No, we were concentrating on the graduation requirements first, but we can look into that and I can get back to you.
Thank you.
And just, I know a lot of people are thinking about the end of the year events and all that, particularly graduation. We don't have anything to report on that yet. What we're waiting for is for Governor Raimondo to make the decisions that she needs to make for the month of May and June. And from there, we'll act appropriately. We definitely want to find a way to celebrate the class of 2020. Just not sure exactly how to do that, and all districts are having this conversation right now. So we're gonna do the best we can for them.
Thank you. Any other questions? questions on that topic? All right, next we're on to routine items. First, I'd ask for a motion to seal the executive session minutes of this evening, April 7th, 2020.
Second.
Motion from Ms. Hoskins, second from, who was it? Sorry. Mr. Mather? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimously. And Mrs. Healy, can you disclose if there were any executive session votes this evening?
There were no votes taken.
Thank you. Next, on the consent agenda, I'm going to start by exempting items D1 and D2. I think we should probably exempt C1. We're going to talk about that a little bit. And I'm going to exempt B1 also. Any others? Which is almost everything. So, let's just take them one at a time. We'll exempt the consent agenda item and we'll take them one at a time. We don't have that many things on there. So we'll start with item B1, which is approval of the executive session minutes of April 1st, 2020. If I could have a motion to approve B1.
So moved.
Second.
Motion for Ms. Hoskins, second, I think Mr. Mather, tell me if I'm wrong. Yep, okay. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Then I'm going to abstain. I wasn't able to attend the entire meeting. Next, we have approval of B2, the business meeting minutes of April 1st, 2020. I have a motion to approve. Motion for Mr. Mather. Second, Mr. Jones. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Next, C1. Mrs. King, could you do a quick overview? I know there was a meeting of the facilities building subcommittee on this item, and you're muted, so. Yep, good.
Okay, there we go. Yes, so at 2 o'clock this afternoon, I had a conference call with the building committee. So first of all, on March 20th, the bids for the high school air conditioning installation project were due. Jim Partridge and I collected the bids on the outside of the D building. I took them back to my office, I opened them, and I scanned them to all 4 bidders so that they could see what was submitted, just like a normal bid opening. And all 4 bidders submitted their information by the 11 a.m. deadline. So I believe that we did what we could at the time. That was about a week into all of the school closing at 9. So at 2 o'clock today, we had a building committee conference call, and the committee recommended that we move forward with awarding the contract for all 3 phases of the air conditioning installation. So we bid everything out separately so that if the numbers had come in too high, we would have had flexibility on, going from 3rd floor to 2nd floor in the atrium. But the numbers are coming in really good. We think it is in the best interest of the district to award all 3 phases. And if we do that, all board construction is the low bidder. And I have enough money in our allocations. We have had 2 bond allocations from the town. I have enough money to cover these numbers. Of course, we do not believe there'll be any problem getting equipment. It's relatively stock equipment. I can keep you up to date on that. If they can start earlier, we will have them start earlier. Of course, we don't know the answer to that. We had planned that they would do some work in like a second shift anyway. So perhaps we'll be able to do a first shift. We don't really know. And the last thing that you do need to know, though, is that apparently soon after schools closed, the town council voted to stop all spending in the town, and that included bond spending. So Mr. Mollis and I had a conversation earlier this week, and at their April 13th meeting, he is going to ask that that restriction be lifted. So that does not impact another project that we have going on, because that was awarded before all of that. But before I can actually do a formal award to the contractor on this project, I do need that, vote from the town council that I hope that we'll get on, Monday night.
So our approval would be pending the subsequent vote of the town council afterwards.
Yes.
Anyone have any questions or comments on this item? Okay, if not, I'd ask for a motion to approve item C1.
So moved.
Motion from Ms. Hoskins. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Ms. Hildebrand. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
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 Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Next, item D1. So item D1, I'm going to abstain from, so I need someone to make a motion to approve item D1.
Amy, do we have to have specific language, or we can just say motion to approve?
You can have just motion to approve, D1.
If you're approving the agreement.
D1.
I have a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
So it's a motion, Mr. Jones, second from Ms. Hoskins. And any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And I'm going to abstain from that vote. And item E2, with unanimous consent, I'm going to remove this from the agenda. It's no longer something that we need to take up this evening. So that reaches the end of the consent agenda. Next item is the approval of the modified school calendar. Dr. Jay, if you could talk a little about that. And just one thing I noticed, we didn't have calendar in our agenda like we normally do. So if you could just sort of point out the upcoming change days, because we've got a couple coming up.
Sure, this was mentioned last week, but it's good to have the school committee formally approve of this. So this basically takes the school year from 180 days to 177 days, and it follows Governor Raimoto's pronouncement that last Friday, this Thursday and Friday, and next Friday are days that are not school days. One of those is Good Friday, which was already off on our calendar. So that's why it's not a reduction of 4 days of school, it's a reduction of 3. So there is a little bit of confusion about that statewide because districts have various different weeks off for vacation. And then their week off got transplanted to March. So a lot of districts are trying to figure out exactly what that means for how many days of school that we have. We're pretty certain that that means 177, but we're looking for a statewide confirmation at that point, and we think we're okay. But I just want to point out that the calendar being what it is this year, there may be another point or two where I come to you and say we need to make another adjustment in a few weeks or in a month or two. So stay tuned on that. But right now, just for clarity's sake, we would like to post on our website the calendar as it was sent. You do have it in your email, everyone, and it just has those changes to it. So the last day of school right now would be June the 15th.
Okay, thank you. And I had to note when the changes were made in my own house with my kids, that normally if we suddenly sprung a couple days when there was no school on parents with a week's notice, it would certainly be handled a little differently than this particular one is. It's not quite the change that it would be otherwise.
Yes.
Okay. So next we have the item F, which is the elementary grading policy. Dr. Jay, you touched on this in your superintendent's report. Do you have any more you want to talk about there?
No, I don't even think that item needs a vote. I think the calendar one would probably need it.
Oh, right, sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. Yep,
Yeah.
sorry. So I need to back up. I need a motion to approve item E1. Sorry.
So moved.
Motion, Mr. Mather. Second from Ms. Hoskins. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Passes unanimously. Sorry, now we'll get back to the fourth quarter grading.
Grading policy item, we technically do not even have an elementary grading policy, so there's nothing for you to amend. It was really just to place a report more so than something to vote on.
Sure. Okay. and next with respect to continuing operations, still awaiting guidance from the governor on anything beyond, there haven't been any changes to that, over the past, since our last meeting. I know, watching the governor's address today, she did do some extensions of some of her executive orders through May 8th, and some of them I know she extended indefinitely at this point. So we don't really have much guidance on what we're looking at
She
beyond where we are
mentioned that
now, right?
she would address more announcements about schools, but she said in the next few weeks, so,
Right.
it doesn't sound like it's gonna be tomorrow morning.
Right, exactly. Okay, next, unless anyone has any questions on continuing operations in our current climate, we have, yeah,
Greg, just a
sorry.
quick question, Mary, the track work, is that still on track?
She's muted. You're muted, Mary. You there?
I couldn't unmute myself
I
there.
got you, sorry.
No problem. Yes, so I've had, conference calls about all of that, so, the weather isn't quite right to get that done right now, but we are working it. We are supposedly at the top of the list, and we're hoping to get that done sooner rather than later. So we're working on that and some of the other open items that we have with Di Gregorio.
Okay, thank you. Next is the 2021 school budget, bit to talk about there. Mrs. King, can you give a little overview of where things stand? Oh, you're muted again. Now you're not, okay?
Yeah, I muted myself, but it says that
Oh.
you unmute me, but that's okay.
Okay, sorry.
So, I'm waiting to see the final wording, but apparently, so Dr. O'Shea and I were on a budget hearing, on Friday with the town council, and apparently, yesterday, the town council voted to cut the school department's town appropriation by $1,141,000. So clearly this just happened yesterday. We're gonna need to take a look at, where we stand with that. That is a preliminary budget vote. There is an awful lot up in the air. I know Dr. O'Shea has been on conference calls with the Superintendent's Association. We don't even know if the General Assembly is gonna be able to vote any kind of state aid in. We don't know. There's some rumors that they might just carry over this year's state aid, which is going to be a killer for us. I would like to say thank you to Greg Mancini and Stacy Elliott for their support of the school department. But I really don't have any answers for you on where those cuts would come. I can tell you that $1 million is going to be difficult.
So, tremendous amount of uncertainty, there's really not a whole lot to say. We have no idea what the state aid is going to look like. In our preliminary budget, we were assuming numbers that had been given to us, which resulted, just to remind you folks, we were expecting an increase in state aid. If they roll over last year's numbers, that goes away to the tune of, correct me if I'm wrong, about $850,000, right, Mrs. King?
No, actually,
$1,500,000.
No,
Yeah.
oh, right, I'm thinking,
$1,500,000, yeah, over this year, which is insane because those state aid numbers are all over the place for the last several years. So we were slated to get $1.5 million more than we're getting this year, which is nuts. It's beyond nuts, because I just can't see how we're gonna see that going forward, but now we don't even know we're gonna see that.
right, so the potential for swings here are huge. It's a preliminary budget vote. We don't know, what the final one will be. There are budget hearings, that will happen between now and the town council's final vote. In the climate that we have now, our traditional, budget hearing at the high school with citizens coming to a microphone clearly can't occur. So it's going to be important for, members of the school community to understand, what we're looking at with our allocation from the town council and what that might mean. Because, if it stands and if the state aid, doesn't come in, as we'd originally expected, there's really no end, even beginning to say, what budgeting could look like going forward. It would be quite, devastating on the school side is really all I can say. So, it's going to be very important that members of the public, speak to their town councilors if they're concerned about what that vote means. And we need to keep an eye on things going forward as we get hopefully some clarity from RIDE and General Assembly and have better ideas of what we're looking at.
And I would also just like to say that the public hearing right now is scheduled for April 20th. It's clearly going to be another Zoom meeting, and the school department portion will be at 7:30. So I think it's very important that everyone passes the word to the public. I know everybody has a lot on their plate right now, but anybody that has anything to say about the school department, that is their chance. That's our regular public hearing. And again, it's April 20th at 7:30 p.m.
Any other comments or questions yet, Lisa?
So Mary, I'm wondering if you can clarify, because you said they cut our request, so we had a request of a certain amount, they cut that, but they're still proposing an increase to our budget, right? It's just not an increase to the amount that we are requesting.
That is absolutely correct. So
Okay.
we requested just over $55 million from the town. I think it was 55.8. I have it right here. If you give me 1 second. And they suggested, yes, we requested $55,855,000 as our town allocation, which is a $2 million increase over the current year. And they recommended that be cut by $1,141,000.
Right, so they're saying, what, a $90,000 increase or something like that?
Yeah.
Okay.
I will say that it was also reported, though, that there was a vote to fund our capital account of $400,000, even though we requested $750,000, and the asset management committee recommended, $4 million, quite frankly. So I am looking to get the wording, the exact wording from our town clerk. Again, it was just yesterday, later on in the afternoon, that they made the vote. So there is some capital money coming our way if that is what they do in the final vote, which I'm assuming is in early May.
And the state, I can't stress enough that, the state aid question is that can have such an impact on what those numbers are going to be in the end. Because we typically budget on what we call state aid assumptions. And I don't think we can make any assumptions on anything at this point. So.
And Dr. Ajay and I did our best to explain that to the town council. Again, Greg Mancini and Stacy Elliott seem to understand that point very well. We understand that there's a lot up in the air for everyone, but if we have a $1.1 million cut from the town and a $1.5 million cut on state aid, I just wouldn't even be able to tell you what we would do. We would probably have to lay off all of our employees so that we could figure it out. I don't even know what to say.
Yeah, for the sake of the public, I think the school committee understands this, but, when you think of a teacher with salary and benefits, on average is probably in the neighborhood of $80,000 to $100,000. That's about 25 teachers that we would be looking at. Not necessarily that that's the only thing that would be cut, but it kind of gives you a sense of the impact that could have. There isn't a school that can do with one less teacher right now. And a lot of that is contractually obligated. So you're really limited in your number of choices in terms of what you can cut. And when you have to do so to that magnitude, it just would not be pretty.
And don't forget, over 70% of our budget is salaries and benefits.
Okay, And, you know, the discussion often is that, you know, when these kinds of budget issues come up, you know, I've heard counselors and people in this town and in others that, you know, scream and yell that the school department always will say, oh, well, we're gonna cut sports, we're gonna cut clubs, and that that's a threat. It's not, to say those kinds of things are not that it's not a threat, it's a reality. It's when there is only a certain amount of the budget that is discretionary and non-contractual, there are only certain things that can be eliminated in order to make the money balance. And unfortunately, those are the types of things that are, you know, they're discretionary. We want to have the school department and the programs that we have. What makes North Kingstown a great place to live, a great place to be, helps our property values. The members of our town council are fully aware of that. But to say, you know, and again, so much of it depends on what our state aid numbers come in at. But to put us in a position where we might be looking at drastic cuts in those areas, it's going to change the type of schools and programs that we have. And, you know, it's not something that can be easily undone once it's done. So I'm really hoping that things either change or that the, you know, projections come out to be better than they look right now. And that'll play out over the next couple of weeks.
And to that point also, Dr. Ogier and I did explain that, you know, we're not, it's nothing to do with threats, but the goal is to not impact teaching and learning as much as we can. And that's why clubs and you know, athletics is the first thing that's discussed. So that's why we usually go there. It's not to, you know, get everybody riled up. It's just that teaching and learning is the goal of any school department. So that's why those are usually the first areas we look at.
And Ms. Hildebrand, I saw you raise your hand.
Yeah, sorry. I just have one other question. The town council meeting on the 20th is a public meeting. That's one of their general meetings, and there's a budget piece of that. So there should be public comment at that meeting, correct?
That's correct, and you know, I did get an invite from the IT person at the town, and I believe what will end up happening is the agenda that the town clerk sends out will have how you can log into it, but I'll double check that and I'll make sure that you all are aware of that. I believe that we need to post that as a meeting as well, because, you know, school committee members are part of that meeting, technically, that's the way we...
Right, that's always been run as a joint meeting, yes.
Right. So all that information will be provided on the agenda.
And Ms. Hoskins?
Right, can we post that on the NKSD website so that all parents and other people in the public not listening to this will see?
Once we have the details, yep.
Yeah, that's always that's usually what we do for that meeting, because it's technically a joint meeting.
I will send a special email notice to the whole community.
Thank you.
And just a reminder of a little bit of North Kingstown history for you. That joint budget hearing, that the point of that hearing was due to some charter amendments many years ago. North Kingstown once upon a time had the town meeting form of government where you go and as a member of the public you could amend the budget, and enough people in that room voted to change it, then the budget was changed. We don't have that anymore. It was replaced with sort of a two-component system of this budget hearing to give members of the public the opportunity to comment, and also the potential of overriding the town council budget by referendum, which sort of took the place of that town meeting idea, because back in the day, whoever got the most people in the room had their say, and it's a little bit of a hybrid system that we have now. So it's definitely a public comment. The whole point of that meeting is to give members of the public the opportunity to comment to the town council on the budget. Anyone else with any questions or comments on that? Okay, then that is the last item on our agenda, and I would ask for a motion to adjourn. To adjourn. Motion, Mr. Jones. Second from Ms. Hoskins. All those in favor? Aye. We are adjourned. Mr. Jones, I will hit the stop recording button. I noticed you hit the start. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye, thank you.
Thank you.